Okay, so topic 3-5, perpendicular and parallel lines. Use the graph below to find the slopes of each line. And so here's line A. I want to find the slope of line A, so I'm just going to do the stair steps. Up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2. And so M equals positive 1/2. Here is line B. I want to find the slope there. So again, I do the stair steps. Up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2. And so M equals 1/2. Here is line C. And again, I'm going to do the stair step. So up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1. And so M equals 2/1, which is just 2. And then the last line, line D, I'm going to do the stair steps here. So this time I go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. And so M is equal to negative 2/1. And so it says, which lines are parallel? Well, the yellow line and the pink line, A and B, look parallel to me. And what do I notice about their slopes? Well, their slopes are equal. Okay. And then which lines are perpendicular? Well, I know that when I see this square right here, that means it's a right angle. Right angle means perpendicular. And so I know that line D is perpendicular to line A. And if A and B are parallel, well, it's also perpendicular to line B. And so the perpendicular lines here are A and D and B and D. And what do I notice about their slopes? Well, A has a slope of 1/2, M has a slope of negative 2/1. And so what we say is they are negative reciprocals. And so all you need to think here is flip and switch. Okay. Flip the fraction, switch the sign. Flip the fraction, switch the sign for lines that are perpendicular. All right, so given the slope, I want to write a slope that's parallel, and I want to write a slope that's perpendicular. And so my first slope is 2/3. Well, we just learned that parallel lines have the same slope, so I can just go ahead and fill in this first column. So if the slope is 2/3, the slope that's parallel is 2/3. If the slope is -4, well then the slope that's parallel is -4. If the slope is -1/4, the slope that's parallel is also a -1/4. And then if the slope is 2, the slope that's parallel is 2. And then if the slope is 0, the slope that's parallel is 0. Okay. Now, perpendicular, remember, we're going to flip and switch. We're going to flip the fraction and we're going to switch the sign. So if I flip 2/3, that becomes 3/2. If I switch the sign, that's going to become negative. So the perpendicular slope is a -3/2. Now, -4 is a little tricky. And so what I might want to do is I might want to make it into a fraction first. And if I want to make it into a fraction, I'm just going to put a 1 under it. And so if I flip the fraction is going to be 1/4. If I switch the sign, well, the given slope is negative, so this has to be a positive 1/4. Next one's a little bit easier. Flip the fraction, 4/1. Switch the sign, negative goes to positive. Next one, number 2, is similar to the one we did for -4. I want to make it into a fraction first, so I'm going to put a 1 under it. And so 2 over 1, so if I flip the fraction, that's a 1/2. But if I switch the sign, well, the given slope is positive, so the new slope has to be negative. Now this next one's a little tricky as well. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do, make it into a fraction, 0 over 1. So we say flip the fraction, so that would be 1 over 0. But I have a problem with that because one of the things we've learned in mathematics is that we can never ever divide by 0. And so hopefully by now we know that when we have a situation like this, that's just a vertical line. And so we know that the slope of that is undefined. Okay. And if you think about it, anything that has a slope of 0 is going to be a horizontal line. And the only way you can have a line perpendicular to a horizontal line is to have a vertical line. And we know the slope of a vertical line is undefined. All right. So I want to determine whether the given lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay. Well, to do this, I need to have an understanding of this. Y equals mx plus b. And m represents the slope. We should know that. And so all I'm going to do is just compare the number. If it's in y equals mx plus b form, I'm going to compare the number in front of the x. And so this is my slope, -1/2, and this is the slope of the second line, 2. Well, so if I take -1/2, obviously it's not equal to 2, but if I flip the fraction and I switch the sign, I get 2 over 1, which is equal to 2. So these are going to be perpendicular. Okay. Problem number 2, y equals 3x plus 7 and y equals -3x plus 2. So I compare the slopes, 3 and -3. So m equals 3, m equals -3. Obviously they're not equal, but I want to see if maybe they're perpendicular. So I change 3 to 3 over 1. So if I flip the fraction, that's 1/3. And if I change the sign, switch the sign, that's a -1/3. Well, -1/3 is not the same as -3. So these are neither. All right. And problem number 3, we're going to have to do a little bit of work here. I have 7y plus 42 is equal to x. Well, if I notice, that equation is not in y equals mx plus b form. And so what I need to do is I need to transform this equation. So I have 7y plus 42 is equal to x. And all I want to do is I want to solve that for y. I want to get the y by itself. So in order to do that, I need to subtract 42. I can't group x and 42 together, so I'm going to get 7y equals x minus 42. And then to get y by itself, I have to divide every term by 7. And so when I simplify, I'm going to get something that looks like this. Y is equal to x over 7 is the same thing as saying 1/7 times x minus 42 divided by 7 is 6. And so I have a 1/7 and I have a 1/7 here. The slopes are the same. And so these are parallel. Okay, so what is the formula we use to find the slope of a line given 2 points? And that formula looks like this. M is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And then from a graph, Well, it would just be m equals rise over run. And so we would just use the stairs from a graph, like we did in the very first example. So how can we find the slope of a line given 2 points on a calculator? Well, we put it in stat, put the points in stat, and then we do linreg ax plus b, and it will tell us what the slope is. All right, so in this example, I have 4 points, and I want to find, I want to determine if the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. And so WX is going to, line WX is going to contain the points W and X, and then line YZ is going to contain the points Y and Z. And so I'm going to go ahead and do these in the calculator. And so I'm going to press stat, I'm going to press enter, I'm going to clear the data. All right, and I'm just going to make me a little T-chart here. This is X, this is Y. So when X is 3, Y is 1. When X is 3, Y is -2. All right, and so that's what I'm going to put in the calculator. In L1, I'm going to put the X values. In L2, I'm going to put the Y values. Okay, so I want to make sure that what I have on the calculator matches what I made with my T-chart, and it does. And so now I'm just going to do stat. I'm going to right arrow key over to calc. I'm going to go down to number 4, linreg ax plus b. I'm going to press enter, and I'm just going to keep pressing enter until it gives me an equation. But notice that it gives me here a domain error. Okay, and I think that maybe I did something wrong in the calculator, but I actually didn't, because when I look at these points, well, what I notice is, I notice that the X values are the same. Okay, and so the equation of this line would be X equals 3. Okay, and so the slope of this line would be M equals undefined. Okay, so when you get this message in your calculator, the domain error, that means it's a vertical line. All right, so now let's look at the next one. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make a T-chart, X and Y, -2, 4 when X is -2, Y is 3. When X is 4, Y is 3. So I'm going to go back to my calculator. Stat, enter. I'm going to clear the data. And I'm going to enter those values, -2 and 4. And then both of my Y values are 3. And then I do it again. Stat, right arrow key to calc, down to number 4. And I just keep pressing enter until it gives me an equation. Okay, and the number that I'm concerned about here is this A equals 0. For some reason, the calculator uses A rather than M. And so what that tells me is that the equation of my line is Y equals 0x plus 3. And so this is my slope, and so M is equal to 0, which means that this is a horizontal line. Okay, and so if we remember this, we kind of understand this problem, Bucks Hoy. And so vertical undefined equals, now I didn't write it in order here, but WX is a vertical line and YZ is a horizontal line. And if you remember from earlier, we said that a vertical line and a horizontal line have to be perpendicular. Okay. All right. Example 5, same way. Line KL is going to contain the points K and L. Line MN is going to contain the points M and N. All right. So we're going to go back to our calculator. And the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to make my T-chart. So when X is -4, this is X, this is Y. Y is +4. When X is -2, Y is -3. So stat, press enter, clear the data. So -4, -2 goes in L1, and then 4 and -3 goes in L2. So I want it to tell me the equation, stat, calc, number 4, enter, 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 till it gives me an equation. So y equals -3.5 x minus 10 is my equation. So y equals -3.5x minus 10. Now, that decimal kind of bothers me a little bit. I want it to be in a fraction. And so all I'm going to do is just type in -3.5 and then math, enter, enter. And so the actual slope of that line, if I wanted to rewrite it, would be y equals -7/2 x minus 10. And so m equals -7/2. That's really all we care about, is finding the slope. All right, so now I want to do the same thing for points M and N. So stat, enter, clear the points. All right, I'm going to make my T-chart. X, Y. When X is 3, Y is 1. When X is -5, Y is -1. So 3, -5, and then 1 and -1. All right, so stat, calc, go down to number 4, or you can just press number 4, enter, and then just keep pressing enter until it gives you an equation. So y equals 0.25x plus 0.25. Again, I don't like this. I want that to be a fraction. And so I type in 0.25, math, enter, enter. And so I get m equals 1/4. And so when I compare the two slopes, m equals -7/2 and m equals 1/4, obviously they're not the same. And they are not negative reciprocals of each other. In other words, we didn't flip and switch. And so these two lines are going to be neither. Okay. All right, so BC and DE. Well, line BC contains the points B and C, and then line DE, contains the points D and E. All right, I'm going to do this one using the formula because I didn't do it up in example number 4, and I want you to see that. And so remember that the formula is just this, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. x1, y1, x2, y2. And so I'm just going to plug in. y2 is 5, y1 is 1, x2 is 3, and x1 is 1. So I get 4 over 2, which will simplify to 2 over 1. And then I'm going to do the same thing for points D and E. And so this is x1, y1, x2, y2. And so m equals 4, now be careful, 4 minus a negative 6 over 3 minus a negative 2. Now I'm subtracting a negative, and so I'm going to do slash and dash. So I'm going to change each of these to plus. So that's going to be 4 plus 6, which is 10, slash and dash again. And so this is going to be 3 plus 2, which is 5. And that's going to simplify to 2 over 1. And so m equals 2 over 1. And it also equals 2 over 1 here. And so these are parallel because their slopes are equal. We can also write the equation of a line given 2 points or a point and a slope. So to do this, we use y equals mx plus b. We've already talked about this. M is equal to the slope, b is equal to the y-intercept. So write the equation in slope-intercept form of a line with the given slope and point, and then graph the line. All right, so 2, 9 is my given point. So I'm going to go right 2, up 9, put a point. Now, m is equal to 5 over 2, but you notice I can't go up 5, right 2, because I'm going to go off the page, or off the grid, I'm sorry. And so the opposite of that would be down 5, left 2. So I'm going to start at 9, and I'm going to count down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, left 2, put a point. I'm going to do it again, down 5, left 2, put a point. Down 5, left 2, put a point. And if I do it again, I'm going to go off. And so my line would look something like this. Okay, so write the equation in slope-intercept form of a line that passes through the given points, and then graph the line. Okay, if I were doing this problem, this is how I would do it. I would plot these points. So -9, -1 would be here, and then 3, 7 would be here. And then I would try to determine, okay, what's the slope between those 2 points? And so I would make me a triangle. And so I'm going to go up 8, and then I'm going to go right 12. So up 8 would be 8, and then right 12 would be 12, and that will simplify to 2/3. And so that is my slope, m. So now what I need to do is I need to determine what's the b. What does b equal? Okay, well, I'm going to use the slope. So I'm going to start at the red point, and I'm going to go up 2, right 3, put a point. And then I'm going to do it again. Up 2, right 3, put a point. And then I'm going to do it again. Up 2, right 3, put a point. That point that I just did, this one, that's my y-intercept. And so my y-intercept is 5. All y-intercept means where does it cross the y-axis? And so the equation of this line is y equals 2/3 x plus 5. Okay, so key concept today is this. Parallel lines have the same slopes. Perpendicular lines, the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other, and all we're going to say is flip and switch.